The castle of Eldamont slumbered beneath a silver fog that clung to its towers like old memories refusing to fade. It was spring in 1491, yet the night air carried an eerie chill, sharp as a whispered warning. No guards recalled hearing a cry. No servants saw a figure leave, but something shifted, like the very stones of the royal palace had taken a breath and held it. At the far end of the eastern wing, in a high chamber with arched windows and velvet drapes, candles still burned when the sun began to rise. Their wax had melted down to glass, their flames tired but defiant. Princess Eleanor's chamber should have been silent with sleep. Instead, it was too still, unnaturally still. Maribel, the young maid assigned to the princess, approached the chamber with the morning tray, warm bread, rosehip tea, and quince jam. She hesitated before the door, feeling that inexplicable pressure that grips the chest before something terrible is known. When she entered, the tray slipped from her hands with a crash. The bed was untouched. No rumpled sheets, no slippers by the hearth. Eleanor's cloak, lined with gold-threaded fur, remained neatly folded on the chair. Her comb and mirror rested exactly as she had left them, yet she was nowhere to be found. The window was open just slightly, enough for a breeze to stir the curtain like a ghost's sigh. No footprints, no blood, no signs of a struggle, just absence. The alarm was raised, echoing through stone corridors until it reached the heart of the keep. Within hours, King Alaric rode in from the northern campaign, his horse steaming, his face grimed with war and fear. The Queen Isidora kept to protocol, veiled, composed, but behind closed doors she ordered servants dismissed, records sealed, and tongues silenced. One by one, the most loyal to Eleanor were exiled from the court. Speculations swirled like wildfire. Some claimed she had fled for love. Others whispered of betrayal, of a scandal buried by royal decree. The common folk spoke more boldly. The princess had discovered a secret, one that the crown would kill to keep. In the cold hearth of her chamber, a page from Eleanor's journal lay scorched at the edges. Its ink ran like tears. Only one sentence survived. If they find out what I saw beneath the chapel. 9 years passed. The room was sealed, then forgotten. Her portrait in the grand hall was covered by dark cloth. Her name was not spoken, except in the dead of night, when servants murmured to each other over candlelight, wondering what had truly happened. The air in her chamber never returned to normal. It smelled faintly of lavender and old wax. The wind still tapped on the glass each spring, as if waiting for something or someone, and the kingdom, though draped in peace, trembled with a silence that grew louder every year, because they all knew. Things buried under stone do not always stay hidden. The door to Eleanor's chamber remained locked for nearly a decade. Not a single servant was allowed near it without written permission from the Queen herself. Even the dust that settled outside the threshold seemed untouched by time, as if afraid to enter. Those who walked past it at night swore they heard the faintest weeping, like the echo of a dream no one dared to remember. Maribel, now a woman hardened by grief and silence, still left a fresh flower at the door each year on the morning of Eleanor's disappearance. A violet, the princess's favorite. It was her small rebellion against the silence imposed by the crown. The rest of the castle moved on, outwardly at least. Balls were held again. Foreign envoys came and went. Princes were entertained. Yet behind the tapestries and golden goblets, the shadow of Eleanor hung heavy over every celebration. Her absence had become a scar the royal family refused to acknowledge, yet could never quite hide. King Alaric grew older with fury burning in his bones. His hair turned white far too early, and the deep lines on his face bore the shape of regret. He buried himself in the affairs of state, expanding borders, strengthening trade, but never, ever speaking her name. Queen Isidora, on the other hand, turned colder. Her once soft eyes became calculating, void of the maternal warmth that once defined her. Some whispered she had always been that way, that motherhood had never softened her, only concealed her sharper edges. Only one person still spoke of Eleanor in hushed tones, the king's advisor, Lord Thorn. A quiet, observant man, Thorn had once tutored Eleanor in diplomacy. He remembered her questions, her curiosity, the way she had always lingered too long near the old chapel ruins on the edge of the castle grounds. It was Thorn who, in the 9th year of her disappearance, noticed something strange, a delivery to the royal archives signed with Eleanor's hand. The signature was faded but unmistakable. The document bore no date, no seal, just a folded parchment with a sketch, an object none had seen before. A relic, maybe, or a key. He brought it to the Queen, who dismissed it at once. "Forgery?" she said without glancing at it. "Burn it." But Thorn did not. He kept it hidden beneath the lining of his cloak, unsure of what to believe. That same night, he returned to the chamber door and stood before it for the first time in years. The scent of lavender lingered still. His hand hovered above the keyhole. There was no sound inside, no sign. But a question burned in his chest stronger than ever before. Had she truly vanished? Or had she been locked away, hidden in plain sight? Thorn knew one thing. The relic was real, and if it had come from Eleanor, she might still be alive. Somewhere, watching, waiting. And soon the kingdom would be forced to remember what it tried. So hard to forget. The chapel ruins stood at the edge of the royal estate, overgrown and forgotten. Ivy strangled its crumbling stones, and moss covered what once had been sacred windows. Locals whispered it was cursed, that the wind there didn't blow like anywhere else. But Lord Thorn, wrapped in a thick cloak against the chill of dusk, walked toward it with purpose. He had not stepped on this soil in nearly a decade, not since Eleanor vanished. She used to come here often, alone, always at dusk. Sometimes barefoot, carrying her journal, returning with dirt under her nails, and a look of questions burning behind her soft eyes. As he stepped inside the ruin, silence greeted him like an old enemy. The scent of damp earth and rotted incense clung to the air, and yet beneath it something else. Lavender, faint, like a memory that refused to die. He knelt where the altar had once stood. The floor was cracked, uneven, but now he noticed a subtle square outline carved into the stone, something he'd never seen before. He brushed aside the moss, his fingers trembling with a strange mixture of fear and reverence. There it was, a small wooden box, buried no deeper than a child's arm, carved with the royal sigil, and bound with a golden thread. His heart raced. He could hear the blood in his ears, feel the weight of years pressing down on his shoulders. Slowly, he opened it. Inside, a brooch. Silver, in the shape of an owl, with a pearl eye and a hidden hinge. A relic once worn by the royal line 3 generations past, thought to be lost in war. But there was more. A scrap of parchment folded behind it. Only one line was written: "Do not trust the crown." Thorn's breath caught in his throat. He closed the box and tucked it beneath his cloak, but not before noticing something else. Carved faintly beneath the altar, almost hidden by the shadow, a name: Ilera. It was the name Eleanor had used in secret letters, when writing to her tutor, her nursemaid, even to him once. A name no one else would have known. She was trying to tell him something, not just that she was alive, but that the people they served, those seated on the throne, had lied, had hidden something, or someone. The weight of it nearly crushed him. That night, as he returned to his chambers, he could not sleep. The candle flickered against the stone walls, and every creak of wood made him start. He was no longer sure who he could trust, but in his dreams, he saw her. Eleanor, grown, weathered by time. Her once soft face now shadowed by experience, her eyes sharper, wiser. She did not smile. She only looked at him silent, as if asking, "Will you finally listen now?" When he awoke, his mouth tasted of dust, but in his hand, clenched tight, was the owl brooch. The owl brooch was no ordinary jewel. As Thorn examined it by candlelight, its craftsmanship revealed secrets. The hinge, almost invisible, opened to reveal a scroll no larger than his thumb. He unfurled it with care, the parchment delicate and yellowed by time. It read, "She watches from where the light breaks. The truth is buried, not dead." The words made his skin prickle. He could almost hear Eleanor's voice in them, soft, deliberate, and always laced with double meaning. Where the light breaks. Could that mean the eastern cliffs? The tower? Ruins? A coded message? Or just poetry from a desperate girl locked away? The next day, Thorn walked the corridors of the royal court with new eyes. Every bowed head, every passing glance, now seemed to carry layers beneath the surface. He studied Queen Isadora closely during the midday audience. Her voice, as always, was silk over stone. Yet when she passed him, her perfume, a pungent blend of lily and clove, triggered something in him, a memory. He was standing outside the Queen's solar years ago, waiting to deliver papers. He had heard crying, then shouting. A girl's voice, Eleanor's, begging. A final sentence before the doors slammed. "You promised me I'd be free." Thorn had buried that memory, now it clawed its way back. Later that night, he visited the archives. The clerk, an old man half asleep behind towers of scrolls, gave him a lazy nod. "Still chasing ghosts, Lord Thorn?" He offered no reply. There, deep in the forbidden records, he found the marriage contracts of the royal family. Eleanor's had never been annulled, It had simply vanished. No record of cancellation, no mention of the groom, just a blank page where signatures should have been, and another name listed in the ledger for that same year, Sir Calum Everhart, a forgotten knight of no particular rank or wealth, a man who had, according to the registry, died in a hunting accident a week after Eleanor disappeared. Thorne's hand trembled as he traced the name. Could it be? Could the princess have married in secret? Suddenly footsteps echoed down the hallway, heavy, too deliberate to be an accident. He closed the ledger and slid it back. Heart pounding, he moved quickly but calmly toward the exit. A voice halted him, low, male. "You should not be here, my lord." Thorne turned. A figure in a royal guard's cloak blocked the path. Face hidden in shadow, no insignia, no name. "I serve the king," Thorne said carefully. "Then serve him wisely," the figure replied. "Some truths end kingdoms." The man disappeared into the dark, leaving the echo of his warning hanging in the stale air. Thorne staggered back into the night, sweat chilling his neck. The garden air was sharp, cutting through his thoughts. The relic, the parchment, the hidden marriage. It was no longer just about Eleanor. It was about the throne itself. And perhaps the real question wasn't where the princess had gone, but why the kingdom had tried so hard to forget her. The eastern cliffs loomed ahead, jagged and eternal, where the first light of dawn always touched the land. Thorne's horse panted beneath him, its hooves skidding on loose gravel. He had ridden through the night, following the cryptic clue. "She watches from where the light breaks." When he reached the edge, he dismounted. Wind whipped through, his coat sharp and cold. The scent of salt from the distant sea stung his nostrils. Below, the rocky coast stretched out like the jagged teeth of a beast, and there, half buried in the slope, stood a stone cottage, hidden from view unless you knew exactly where to look. Thorne's heart pounded. He approached slowly, every footstep echoing like a drumbeat in his chest. The wood of the door was weather-worn, covered in ivy. He raised a gloved hand and knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. Soft, barefoot. The door opened, and there she stood. Eleanor, older. Her face no longer smooth with youth, but radiant in a different way, etched with experience, shadowed by pain. A scar crossed her left cheek, faint but undeniable. Her hair, once coiled and adorned with jewels, now hung loose in thick waves streaked with silver. But her eyes, those eyes, still fire and honey, still the same storm that once pulled him under. He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, neither could she. Her fingers trembled at her side. She was barefoot, wrapped in a simple woolen dress, no crown, no pretense, only her, as she was. "Thorne," she whispered. He stepped forward, almost blindly. "It's you. Gods, it's really you." She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She reached out and touched his face with both hands. And in that moment, the world collapsed. Her fingers were warm, calloused, real. He inhaled her, earth and salt and the faint memory of lavender. He gripped her waist, afraid she'd disappear again. She trembled under his touch. Their foreheads met. Lips brushed. It wasn't passion, it was desperation. A kiss of time stolen, of years lost, of promises buried in silence. When they finally parted, she led him inside. The air smelled of herbs and sea air, wood smoke and old books. A single candle burned. A blanket was folded neatly on a bench. The home was humble, lived in, a sanctuary. "Why didn't you come back?" he asked, voice hoarse. She stared into the fire. "Because they told me if I did, everyone I loved would pay the price." He flinched. "Who?" She turned to him, voice low. "The Queen, my father, the entire council. My marriage to Calum was real, Thorne. We loved in secret. When they found out, they tried to erase us. He died protecting me." His throat tightened. "And you?" "I ran, hid, gave birth to my child in silence. I've been here ever since." He froze. "Your child?" She looked up. "A daughter. She's 8, and she deserves more than this exile." Silence fell between them like a curtain. He took her hand. "Then we'll burn the curtain." She smiled for the first time in 9 years, a soft, broken, beautiful smile. Morning filtered through the cracks of the cottage roof, casting golden streaks over the worn wooden floor. Thorne stirred awake on a coarse blanket, still tasting her kiss, still feeling the imprint of her fingers on his chest. A creak of the door startled him. He turned. A small girl stood at the threshold, barefoot like her mother, holding a wooden carving of a bird. Her eyes were wide, curious but not afraid. She had Eleanor's eyes and Calem's jaw. "Are you a knight?" she asked softly, tilting her head. Thorn rose slowly, unsure whether to kneel or simply cry. "No, but I once wanted to be." She walked toward him unbothered and handed him the bird. "I made this yesterday. It's a barn owl." His hands closed around it, and he swallowed a lump in his throat. "It's beautiful." Eleanor appeared behind her daughter, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. "This is Aveline." Aveline. The E. Name struck him like a bell, soft, elegant, chosen with care. He stood and met Eleanor's gaze. "She's perfect." The three sat together in the quiet morning. Eleanor brewed tea over the fire, the scent of mint and dried orange peel filling the room. She poured it into tin cups with steady hands. Aveline curled up near the hearth, humming a lullaby Thorn faintly remembered Eleanor singing in their youth. "She's never known court life?" he asked. "No," Eleanor replied. "No titles, no lies, just us and the sea." He stared into the flames. "But now, the relic, the scroll, your name whispered again. That piece is slipping." Eleanor nodded. It was only a matter of time. A knock at the door broke the silence. Eleanor froze. Her hand tightened around her cup. Thorn stood, motioning Aveline to stay quiet. Another knock, firmer. He drew his dagger, stepped to the door, and opened it with controlled force. A figure in brown cloak stood outside, soaked, unarmed. It was Malus, the same old court archivist who once snuck Thorn forbidden scrolls behind the Queen's back. "I rode all night," Malus gasped. "They know she's alive. The Queen has dispatched riders toward the coast. You have days, maybe less." Thorn pulled him inside. "How?" Malus shook off rainwater. "The scrolls, it wasn't just a clue, it was a marker, a signal meant for sympathizers. Someone saw it open in your hands." Eleanor's eyes darkened. "They will come," she said. "Then we go," Thorn answered, already gathering supplies. "We ride to the old ruins north of Windmere. There's shelter, and from there we make our case to the people." "To the people?" Eleanor asked. He met her gaze. "Yes, you were the heart of this kingdom once. Let them see it still beats." Aveline looked between them. "Are we going on an adventure?" she asked. Eleanor knelt before her daughter, brushing hair from her face. "Yes, my love. The most important one of all." Aveline smiled, but outside the sky was no longer golden. It was storm grey, and the winds of war had begun to shift. 1 year later, the banners of the kingdom fluttered high above Windmere's towers. The air was thick with the scent of bread, flowers, and new beginnings. Aveline laughed as she ran through the garden, her shoes muddy, her curls wild. No one stopped her. No one scolded, because she was no longer hidden. She was the daughter of Eleanor of Caerwyn, the princess who had vanished and returned not as a ghost but as a storm. The council had fallen. Secrets had been unearthed. Loyal allies of Queen Aldara were exiled or imprisoned, their cruelty revealed through the recovered letters and ledgers hidden in the ruins of Calem's estate. The people had spoken. They wanted Eleanor, not as a queen, but as a symbol of what their kingdom could become. She had refused the throne. "I was never meant to rule from a seat of gold," she had said, voice clear and calm before a crowd of thousands. "I was meant to raise a daughter in the sun, to love a man who never stopped looking for me, and to live as I truly am, not a figure on parchment but a woman of flesh and hope." And so she had chosen instead to build. A school for girls now rose on the hill where her mother once cried for her disappearance. A home for widows and wounded soldiers stood where Thorn's ancestors had once hunted foxes for sport. The castle. Doors were open to the people once a week, so they could see where their stories were written, and claim their place in them. Thorn stood by her side through it all, not as a knight, not as a noble, but as her husband. Their love, once buried beneath silence and scar, had grown like ivy over old stone, strong, tangled, and forever reaching toward light. That night, as Aveline slept curled between two books, Thorn and Eleanor sat beneath the stars. "Do you ever regret returning?" he asked softly. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "No," she whispered. "Not for a single breath." And from the cliffs where the wind still howled and the waves still crashed, the kingdom that had nearly forgotten her name now sang, it in the streets. Eleanor, the vanished princess who became legend, not by magic but by love, courage, and the truth that refused to stay buried. If this story moved you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes in love, courage, and second chances. Every week we bring you tales from forgotten kingdoms, stories not of fantasy, but of hearts that dared to hope again. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We'd love to know which corner of the world is listening to our stories, and don't forget, the next tale might be closer to your heart than you think.